Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
I feel inclined to stand because the two speakers that went ahead of me stood. So let's see how it goes. If I get tired, I might sit down, but let's see how it goes. I kept seeing the time up paper. The first off, I'll start by saying it's so hard to tell your story and limit it to 5 minutes, but I'll do my best. Secondly, I'm a bit nervous, so if my voice sounds shaky at some point, just know I'm a bit nervous. Thank you. Then, I think I'm a bit unpopular, like I'll be different from a lot of speakers here. I'm not a motivational speech type of person. I'm not somebody that will read the self-help book. So when Nabi said, tell your story, in my mind, I'm like, I think that would be a more impactful way to communicate to participants. When I was a child, I didn't resign. My story is a bit different from their own. And every time I'm invited for a speaking engagement, sometimes I try to write something, oh, this is what I'll say. But honestly, when I get there, I just end up talking from my head and from my heart. So that's what I'm going to do today. Yeah, the same should tell our story. But I'll be honest with you, at some point, so I'm at a point where I think it may be the thing for a couple of us now, but I'm at a point where AI and I are very good friends. We talk a lot. Don't judge me. So I asked ChatGPT, I said, I've been invited to speak at this event, what do you think? And then ChatGPT broke it down into 5 segments for me. I typically wouldn't use ChatGPT to develop what I'm going to say, but these 5 segments kind of, like it made sense to me, and I'm going to tie my story to these 5 segments that ChatGPT came up with for me. The first is the soil, the second is the seed, the third is the roots, the fourth is the bloom, and the 5th is the gift. And when you look at these 5 structures, it's tied to purpose, planted on purpose. Now, as a child, before I tell you my story of when I was a child, my mom used to say, "Sure, your life is like, it will be good for motivational speech," even though I told you I don't do motivational speeches. But my mom used to say, my life will be good for motivational speech. And by the time I'm done telling my story, maybe you understand why. And this is the first time I'm actually sharing this story, like, publicly. It's something that my family members know, something that a few close friends know, but I've never shared it publicly. So I don't know whether to say congratulations to participants, but yeah. So as a child, I'm the third of 5 children. All my siblings are very smart. They used to perform really well in primary school. It was a thing where my parents actually had to attend their speech and prize giving days because they would always have to escort my siblings to the stage to collect their gifts. Unfortunately for my parents, I wasn't that type of child. So we were 33 in my class, and out of all 33 of them, the best, at the time, I know they've stopped it now in most schools, but at the time, they used to give positions in class. So the best position I ever had in class was 29th out of 33. Now, I was so, let me use this word, dumb as a child, that the first time I actually saw my position, my first position was 31st out of 33 people in class. So the first time I saw it, so you know how when you mark our scripts, we'll have, let's say, 59/60. So you're like, yeah, I passed. So when I saw my result sheet, even though there are a couple of red pens, like fail, when I saw 31st out of 33 in my mind, I'm like, yeah! That's how dumb I was. So I went home, and my brother, me and 2 of my younger ones were in primary school at the same time. Now, the last one was first position in class. The second to the last one, who is the one that's following me, was 3rd position in class. My older siblings had finished primary school. They were in secondary school, soaring in secondary school, actually. They said when we were driving home, they were like, one was like she came first, one was like she came third. My mind was like, you did pass. So I got home, I was telling my older brother, and he was with his friends. I was like, TK, yeah. I came 31st out of, and he's like, how many are in your class? I said 33. And I just noticed the room was quiet. Just know I left. Anyway, I got to grade 5 and was supposed to write common entrance to go to secondary school. Now my parents wanted all of us to go to a particular school in Jos. If you're from Plateau State, I don't know if you know Bethany Christian Academy, but it's like a very good school. So my parents wanted all of us to go there. I wrote the common entrance exam. Now, I wrote 11 common entrance exams and I passed only 2. Now, out of the 2 I passed, my parents didn't want me to go there at all because they were not like good schools. So, my dad took me and one girl in my class to go and write. Now, just know that as I'm talking, this part of my life I'm talking about is the soil. I feel the soil is, when you think about soil, what do you think about? Dirty, you have to get your hands dirty. It's the muddy season, the season where you're trying to prepare the land to plant, to sow your seed, so to say. So yeah, so I'll say this season of my life is part of the soil. And mind you, I don't think that the soil happens only once in a lifetime. I've grown, I've passed the phase where I used to fail, but I still encounter soil stages in my life, and like as I tell my story, it will make sense to you what I mean by the soil stage. So yeah, out of 11 common entrance exams, I passed 2. My parents really wanted me to go to Bethany Christian Academy, but I failed it. My dad was the one that even drove me and one of my friends to the school to write the exam. She passed and I failed. The funny thing is the chairman of the board of the school was my dad's friend. So my dad spoke to him, this girl, there should be a way for her to be able to enter. He called the principal and the principal told him that he would have actually been able to help. But the way I failed, if they actually give me admission, they would do me a disservice. So the principal advised the chairman to talk to my dad to have me repeat grade 5, or if they give me admission, my dad should agree with the school that I would repeat GS1. Now, in all my being dumb and all of that, I knew that I wanted to finish my educational pursuit at a certain age. So I didn't know how I was going to get there, but I knew that, you know what, I want to finish university at 20. I want to do masters, I want to have a PhD. So I set all these age limits for myself, but I wasn't, like on paper, it wasn't like, you know, I remember when my dad called and it's like, will you repeat grade 5? And then you go to BCA, or you go there and you repeat GS1. Just like, so my mates will be my senior. I said, Daddy, I actually want to finish school at 20. He's like, my baby boy, you are failing. So what do I do? Guess what? My mates actually resumed school in September and I was school till like November. How did I actually even eventually go to secondary school? My mom was a banker. The school, this federal school had their account in her branch, and she was very nice to the principal, so they became friends eventually. So I think one day she just started a conversation with the principal and she's like, this is my plight, my daughter is at home, she doesn't want to repeat grade 5. First off, I'm even thankful to my parents that they didn't even force me to do anything at all, they just left me. So she's like, she doesn't want to repeat grade 5, she doesn't want to go to the school we actually want her to go to and then repeat GS1 at the end of the day, so what do we do? And the woman is like, are you willing to, is she open to coming to a federal school? Honestly, I would say at the time I didn't want to, but that was the only way I could enter GS1. So they worked something out and I resumed in November in the Federal Government Girls College, Boko, in Benue State. And out of all my siblings, I'm the one that went to that type of school. It's not even a bad thing, to be honest, but I discovered myself, or I'll say I discovered what works for me in that school. Now, I wouldn't say I'm like every other person that sits in class. If you put me in class, I don't even know how to pay attention for a long time, and I'm still like that till now, you know. But I discovered what works for me. If you put me somewhere, even in the office, honestly, it's coffee that helps me stay awake sometimes. But from like morning till evening, I'll be yawning. But at night, anything I read that time stays in my head. I mean, people say don't cramp. Me, I'll even cramp, but it will stay in my head. So I discovered that's what works for me. And so I said to apply during my 6 years in secondary school. For the first time, I came third position, and my dad told my mom, talk to that principal, I think they are using connection to but actually it was because I discovered what works for me. So my mates actually used to go to class and they'll sit in class and listen and you work for them. But for me, in class I'll sleep off. Don't even tell me, stand up, do this, do that. I'll wake up in the middle of the night to read and it will stick. And that's how I started passing in secondary school. Time to go to university, I graduated. Now in all of this, I didn't like math at the time. So I graduated, passed my work, but I failed math. I had D7 in math. My parents wanted me to go to Covenant University. I also wanted to go to Covenant University. My reason at the time was, I like the way Covenant University students dress and carry themselves. So that's the reason I wanted to go there. Now, I feel like when we make decisions, it's very important to ask ourselves why we are making these decisions. In my failing through primary school, I actually liked Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala. In fact, at the time, even though I was failing, I could write well. So I used to write articles. My dad had this friend that had a national daily. So he used to give the friend to publish what I write to the friend to publish in the national daily. So I'll write about Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, Dora Akoli, Pauline Talent at the time, just women I admired. So I was failing, but I had these women I admired. And I think Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala was the one that stood out to me. So there's this picture of this woman I want to be like. Anyway, back to university. Because I had D7 in maths, I didn't get into Covenant University because they have this rule where regardless of the course you're studying, you must have C. I also want you to know that at the time, so like she said, I don't like the word late bloomers as well. I feel like when you discover your purpose, it's your time to bloom. Or maybe people have contrary opinions and you have a reason for those opinions. When it was time to go to university, I actually didn't know what course I wanted to study. My dad was like, so my older sister said I argue a lot, so I should study law. I was like, yeah, I think I'll study law. I'll be able to use my argumentative skills. My dad was like, study political science. You said, so I used to say I wanted to be the first female president of Nigeria. So my dad was like, study political science and actually go into politics. After some time, he's like, you know what, study history so I became confused. I didn't know what I wanted to study. Now, there are times when, for some people, they have a calling, their purpose is revealed to them in a great picture. Me, I'm not one of those type of people. The way my life, the way I turned out, the way I emerged, I actually emerged this way by failing. Now, when I didn't go to Covenant University, first of all, I had to fail in all those other schools for me to go to the school where I discovered myself. And in that federal school, I was very lazy till I went to secondary school. It's survival of the fittest, so I had to learn. And I feel like that's why I discovered myself. The school my siblings went to is a school where they'll tell you what to do, you do this. I didn't have that type of structure. Like, you had to survive, So that's what I feel like it made me discover myself. And I got there by failing, to get admission to all these other schools my parents would have wanted me to go to. Time for university, actually,